Okay, Chair, we're live.
Yeah. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's hearing. My name is Councillor Ahmed, and I shall be chairing the meeting. My colleagues, Councillor Driscoll and Councillor Gallant, and I comprise today's subcommittee. Cornelia Harding, who is the clerk to the subcommittee, will be minuting the meeting. Alison Luff is the legal advisor to the subcommittee, and Anjali Garcha, licensing processing team leader, will introduce the report. I will be inviting the licensing officer to introduce the report and provide any clarification on any factual issues. Then I'll invite the applicant to present the application, answer any questions, and call any witnesses. Then I'll be inviting those who have made representations or objections to make their representations, answer any questions, and call any witnesses. At the conclusion of the hearing, the subcommittee, accompanied by the legal advisor and the committee democratic services officer, will retire to consider its decision. The decision will be given at the end of the meeting and confirmed in writing within 5 working days. We aim to reach the decision by 4 p.m. today. If the panel cannot reach a decision today, you will be notified in writing within 5 working days of the panel's decision. Today's hearing is about Kayra's Mediterranean restaurant. And before we start the meeting, I just want to clarify that I was mayor of Ealing until this May, and as a mayor, this was my role to visit local businesses, and I have visited many businesses, including Kayra restaurant. So this is just a clarification. So before we start, can I ask applicant to introduce yourself so that everyone knows who is who? Mr. Gunduz, you can start.
Thank you, Councillor. My name is Olgan Gunduz, solicitor for the applicant, Fortis Rose Solicitors. The applicant is Kayra Mediterranean Restaurant, based at 187189
That's
High
fine.
Street.
That's fine.
My client who's present today, his name is Nusrettin Janaj, and his agent is also present, who's already identified herself, who assisted with the making of the application.
Right. Maureen, you want to introduce yourself?
Maureen College. I'm representing the Churchfield Community Association. We're an association of residents and businesses. We have about a 200 household membership in the area, and I'm putting forward a community view today.
Thank you. Anne?
Anne Brennan, representing Mill Hill Park Residents Association with 140 members, and in a similar way representing those members from my area.
Thank you. I have already introduced the rest of the members. Yes, Mr. Gland, Councillor Gland, you've got anything to say?
Yes, Chairman. I should have mentioned that as I'm resident in Acton, and I'm actually a member of the Mill Hill Residents Association. I should have mentioned that earlier, but just so everyone's aware of that. But I'm acting as independently here.
Is there any other declaration of interest here? No. Okay, in that case, we can move on and ask Anjali to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. So Mr. Nusrettin, and I apologise if I'm saying the surname wrong, we've got it down as Kayra, has made an application to vary a premises licence in relation to Kayra Mediterranean Restaurant, which is located at 187 to 189 High Street, Acton, W39DJ. 3 representations have been received for this application, and these are one from Mill Hill Park Residents Association, one from Churchfield Community Association, and one from Mr. Slobodan Vukovic. And the nature of the proposed variation is as follows. One is to extend the sale of alcohol hours on the premises, Monday to Saturday, 10 o'clock to midnight, Sunday, 11 o'clock to 22:30 hours. Secondly, to extend the late night refreshment indoors, Monday to Saturday, 2300 hours to 1 a.m. And to add the provision of live music indoors, Monday to Sunday, 1900 hours to 2300 hours. The subject premises is a restaurant and it's located within the special policy area as defined in the council statement of licensing policy. That's it from me, Chair, unless you want any further clarification.
No, that's fine. Thank you for this. Now I'm going to invite the applicant to present the application.
Thank you, Councillor. Those hours are correct as they correspond with the application. One thing that I will already highlight is with regards to live music hours, it is noted that the proposed hours are from until 2300 hours. I note, however, that the proposed opening hours for Sunday also is 2300 hours. I don't propose that music runs up until 11 o'clock on Sunday. Therefore, I will be inviting the application to be considered for half an hour before closing time for live music on Sundays. That's just a note I would like to make before we proceed any further.
So can you clarify the time you are talking about?
Yes, on Sundays, live music should, I mean, I wasn't involved in the making of the application. It's just something that I've noticed.
Yeah.
Because the premises are proposed to be open until 11 o'clock, 11 p.m. on Sundays, I would propose that music stops at 10:30, half an hour before closing time.
On Sunday, 10:30.
Which is usually the common approach with premises.
Okay, fine.
So therefore, if I begin by suggesting, has everyone that's attending today received my email of yesterday?
Can everyone, yes, I can see everyone nodding. So they have received, and we also have received, yes.
Thank you, because I don't propose to repeat each and every point of the representation if everyone has had the opportunity to read the same. I tried to assist for today's purposes so we don't spend a long time going through these issues. But it is correct that there are 3 objections, and my representation in writing yesterday was designed to outline how we are responding to those points of objections. Now, if I can briefly begin with the first objection, this is in relation to, this is from Mill Hill Park Residents Association, and the issues identified there have been pretty much responded to in my communication, and I will be listening to the objections again in due course today, and we'll have the opportunity to respond to those, I believe, at a later stage, as you will direct as chair.
There is a bit of interference. Anne, can you switch off your mic, please?
Yes. Now, to begin with, the proposal is essentially a half an hour extension to operating hours. At the moment, opening hours are until midnight, and we're proposing to open until 1 a.m. But in terms of the sale and supply of alcohol, this will stop at by our proposal at midnight. The current supply of alcohol hours for these premises is 11:30. So that's a half an hour extension that we're seeking. And in terms of live music, I made the point in my written representation to say that any regulated and licensed premises, they already have the right to have live music on premises without requiring additional license, provided it is until 11 o'clock, provided it stops at 11 o'clock, and provided the capacity of the premises does not exceed 500 people. I've specified how many, what the current capacity of the premises are, and that's 150 maximum. At the moment, it's 140, but it has capacity for another 10. So we can see that we are way under the prescribed guidance for what is permitted for live music. Now, having said that, I've also responded to the concerns raised in the objections regarding noise and disturbance. Mill Hill Park Residents Association suggested that doors, windows, etc. be closed during any music activity. And I've responded by saying, yes, of course, I mean, all doors, windows, bifolds will be closed, and there will be no noise disturbance to the outside, even to the immediate vicinity on the pavement, let alone the neighborhood generally. So I will propose that having live music should not pose any concern for noise and disturbance. And I will also add that given the caliber of the premises, this is not a property or business that operates as a music venue. It is a restaurant, an upmarket ambient restaurant. Music is for the reason why the applicant feels the need to have music is because to be able to respond commercially and in a business sense to demand from bookings. Suffice to say, at the moment, given the current economic climate, most businesses are struggling, and my client is no exception to that. At the moment, they're having to say no to bookings because they don't have this license, live music. And they're suffering because customers believe that they can go elsewhere. So the music that we are thinking of is along the lines of jazz music, acoustic, guitar, soft, nothing along the lines of electric music or heavy rock or the usual music that you will see in bars and clubs. It's more appropriate for restaurant ambient seating. So again, I will add that this is something that I would like the committee to take into consideration for today's purposes. This is a very, insofar as the applicant is concerned, they are experienced managers and they are restaurant proprietors. They have never, ever in the past been involved in the running of bars or clubs. They have no experience and they have no appetite to move the business in that direction. And I mention this only because in one of the objections, it was mentioned that this is potentially where this business can go. I will invite the committee to disregard that speculative assumption because given the history of my clients and the current setup of the premises, it's a restaurant and there is no intention that this will become ever a pub, bar or a club. So while we understand the fears, I will ask for that to be disregarded given our background and our current setup. In terms of the commercial waste point, I can see that in fact, in all of the objections, this has been a concern. I'm struggling to understand how commercial waste becomes part of a licensable activity point. However, I have taken the time to seek instructions and we have dealt with this issue comprehensively in our response to at least provide an explanation to those objecting. I managed to speak with Mrs. I believe Maureen College yesterday of Churchfield Community Association, and I will come back to that, but I haven't had the opportunity to speak with Mill Hill or Mr. Slobodan Vukovic. Hence why I felt the need to respond in writing to suggest this. Commercial waste has been a problem on the high street, generally speaking. This is a matter which the local council are trying to resolve. It's not a problem that is caused by these premises. It is a general problem. There have been numerous complaints made by our client, who has a contract with the council. I'll make a correction to my written response of yesterday. I did state in my response that my client pays £800 for local authority for commercial waste to be collected. I should have added that's a monthly fee that they pay, not annually. So annually they pay in excess of £9,000, almost £10,000 for their commercial waste to be collected. And my client has been responded to by the council with every time they made a complaint, they've sent drivers out to pick up the waste. But this is not how the high street should function, or this is not how commercial waste should be managed by the council. Hence why I would invite again the committee to, of course, listen to the concerns, because we have also listened to the concerns and the complaints. But for the purposes of today, for this licensable activity considerations, I will respectfully invite the committee to disregard this, because it doesn't touch upon licensable activities. Whilst noting that we are also trying to work with local councillors and the local council to deal with the general waste problem. If I may move on to my conversation with Mrs. Maureen College of yesterday, I have already set out in my written representation that we have made progress in terms of their concerns. Other than the opening hours, we've managed to reach agreement on 3 of the other points. One is that my client understands that there will be a condition, because he's now submitting to it willingly, that all alcohol on the premises will be served with a substantial meal. He understands that this will be a condition on his license, if approved today by the committee, and he will enforce this. I would like to remind that this is not a condition, this is not a response to a condition, but my client is already practicing that even without this condition. Because as an experienced restaurant proprietor, he recognizes that he wants only certain type of clientele at his premises, whereby he doesn't want to encourage any customers that come in purely for drinking. So this is not a drinking establishment per se, in that sense. It's a restaurant. So alcohol is always ancillary to the restaurant. However, customers do want a drink with their meals, and they should be entitled to do so. Now, the second agreement that I have reached with Mrs. Maureen College was in relation to their concern about deliveries, and that's deliveries of supplies to the premises. My client agrees that all deliveries will be made between 8 AM and 8 PM. Strictly, and this can be a condition in the license if approved today. With regards the final point in Churchfield Community Association's objection relating to smoking, we have managed to we've discussed this extensively yesterday, but the suggestion was that we restrict pavement smoking altogether. While my client is happy to enforce or try to enforce from a legal point of view, and I'm also open for advice from the committee's legal advisor on this, we cannot possibly enforce a no smoking restriction on the pavement, which is public. So in that sense, this is where we came to a standstill. My client, as management, assures the committee today.
Alison, I can see you are online. You wanted to speak, or shall we carry on?
No, do carry on, Chair. Sorry, carry on.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Part of the problem, and this is for Alison's benefit, during our discussion yesterday, we discussed where the management could say to customers on the pavement, customers of the premises that are on the pavement, if they want to go out for smoke, we will put up signs on the premises from the outside where they can clearly see that the area outside the premises, it's a no smoking area. In terms of enforcing it, because the immediate step outside on the pavement is not our private land, we don't want to be in a conflict scenario with not just customers but pedestrians generally. And so this is what I mean by there is a problem with enforcement of this requirement. And the compromise that we're willing to make there is to put up signs at least, and also get our staff on premises to remind customers not to smoke immediately outside the premises. And Mrs. Maureen College also helpfully suggested, and I'm not familiar with the area. I mean, I do know the high street well, but I don't live there. So she does, and she recommended that there is across the road an open area where customers can go to smoke. And I did assure Mrs. College yesterday that we will ask our staff to ask customers if they really want to go out for a smoke, then they can go there. May I remind the committee here already that we don't have a problem with smoking, in the sense that our customers are not seen congregating outside the premises. This is not a bar or a pub or a club. We have never had complaints from anyone saying that there are too many smoking customers of these premises. We are purely responding to this request so that we can be helpful. But having said that, I mean, putting up signs outside the premises should ideally encourage customers not to smoke outside the premises. It may help, it may not, but it's not something that we can enforce. And this is something that perhaps Alison can comment on afterwards. So apart from that, the only issue that we couldn't really agree with Mrs. Maureen College yesterday was opening hours. And there, my point was, we are only applying for half an hour. If we were to step down, then that would really make this application unnecessary. And so if we were, for example, if our application stated that the opening hours were proposed to be 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning, then there is room for step down, and we would have taken that approach. But half an hour is minimal. So therefore, that's the only issue that we couldn't agree on yesterday. Apart from that, I mean, having dealt with the sort of issues of Churchfield Community Association's objections, I believe the applicant has responded to Mill Hill Park Residents Association's concerns in written, but in summary, I will add, I noted, by the way, that Mill Hill Residents Association has 140 members, and I noted that Churchfield Community Association has 200 members. And I will simply add that upstairs of Kayra Mediterranean Restaurant, there are 77 residential units, and that's immediately in the upper parts of the building. And they were aware of this application, and they have made no objection to this application. And this application has also been served upon the relevant authorities, and we have not had a single objection from any of the other authorities, including the police. The police would, of course, be primarily concerned with applications of this nature by reference to the 4 licensable objectives: crime and disorder, etc., etc. So given that there is no objection from the police, they are familiar with these premises, and they will have taken the view that this is not a problematic application insofar as the objectives are concerned of the Licensing Act. In terms of, in going forward, I will propose that the committee considers the conditions that I've suggested in terms of substantial meal with alcohol, deliveries between 8 and 8 hours, and also subject to advice from Alison about signs outside the premises. I believe these answer the objections, and I will invite the committee to therefore approve the application. Those are my submissions, unless you have any further questions.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Do you have any witness, or shall we move on?
We don't have any witness. The applicant is there to answer any questions.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. While we carry on, if in case my computer restarts, then obviously we'll have a bit of pause, but we'll continue until that happens. It may not, but let's see how it goes. Now, at this stage, I'm going to ask the objectors if they've got any question. You will have a time to make your presentation, but at the moment, only a question. Yes, Anne, you've got a question.
I have a question.
Hi there, thank you.
Sorry,
Chair.
before you start, we have Mr. Slobodan, who has also joined, who is also an objector. So just for information, he's also online. Yes, and carry on.
Thank you. Mr. Gundus mentioned about the waste on the pavement outside the premises, which I've witnessed personally, and I know the person that's just joined this meeting has repeatedly witnessed the bags out on the pavement being ripped open, and it's got sort of food-related litter, which is clearly from the premises. In the email that you sent, I was sent yesterday, there wasn't really acknowledgement that belonged to the premises, and I feel that definitely does belong to the premises. In terms of the licensing objectives, public safety is one of the licensing objectives, and blocking the pavement and having food waste across the pavement is an issue for pedestrians going past, and for people who are using the premises. So I do think it's a valid point to raise about the premises, about concerns we have about the premises. Also,
I was only expecting a question. You will have a time to make your presentation later stage.
Okay. I have a question. Is it possible if I wanted a question to be asked of the applicant?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. If you have any question at this stage, only.
Okay.
Question.
So for the applicant, the conditions around food only being served with a substantial table meal and the delivery hours, are they aware that that's already on their license?
Mr. Gundus, it's a question for you.
The current conditions are, sorry, it's Anne, isn't it?
And yes,
And yes, now those are conditions, but I was merely responding to, with our client's acknowledgement, I was merely responding to the objections from Churchfield Community Association.
You actually said that they practice it at the moment and it's not a condition about the table meal, when it actually is a condition. And that sort of concerns me that the applicant doesn't even know what conditions are on their current license.
I think the committee can deal with that. So whether it is a condition or not, Mr. Gunduz has offered that. So committee will consider that.
Also, with regards deliveries, that's a no. We've offered conditions. Generally speaking, I mean, we've offered the condition of, for example, signs outside the premises, which is not a current condition, and we've offered deliveries to be made between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. And also substantial meal. If you know, if it is on there, then it can remain on there, and the committee is invited to deal with that accordingly.
Yeah, okay.
Could I ask a question?
Just 1 second. Let me switch to my other computer because this is going to. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Maureen, you can ask a question.
Yes, I wanted to ask about the late night food license. Does that include deliveries from the restaurant to people, or is it just food that's going to be eaten inside the restaurant?
It's inside the premises because Deliveroo or Uber deliveries close at the same time. It's on premises application, so this is only for inside the premises.
Okay. Any other question? No.
I have a question. Sorry. I'm quite surprised to hear that deliveries are 8 to 8. This is quite a large span of deliveries. And also, there's a loading bay outside the premises, which I believe it says 7 to 7. So how is delivery managed between 8 and 8? And also, what happens if the existing loading bay is shared between a number of premises, including Mlečko, other shops in the close vicinity? So how would they manage any deliveries that clash or loading? How would that loading bay be served between other vehicles at the same coming at the same time? And also, I'm very surprised to have it to hear that this is actually 8 to 8. That usually deliveries are in the morning, early morning, or late evening. That's it. Not during all day.
Okay, in terms of, if I may respond?
Yes, please.
In terms of deliveries, Mr. Vukovic, the 7 to 7 is a highway rule. The concern of the residents we are simply responding to the concerns, and we are at liberty to take deliveries. We don't have to abide by the highway rules. 7 o'clock is considered to be too early by the residents, and we're simply responding positively to their requirements. And in terms of 8 in the evenings, there are some. This is not a point about loading or unloading. It's about deliveries. Some deliveries can be made. Some of the items can be made where the delivery will be made on the side road. I think the concern is not where the deliveries are made, but during hours. If suppliers are parking on loading, that's a matter between suppliers and highway authority. Insofar as we're concerned, we're simply responding to the residents' concerns.
Okay. Okay, my colleagues, Councillor Glant, do you have any question? If you can switch on your mic.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. Just in relation to the waste. Now, what I've noticed, you've agreed that there'll be 2 additional wheelie bins, and all commercial waste will be kept in overnight. So there'll be nothing out on the street overnight for foxes and other vermin to tear into. Would you be happy to make that a condition? The other question really I have to the objectors, and it's a general one, to the objectors. Do you feel that your concerns have been answered by the email that was sent out yesterday, and the what's the word, the sort of the integration or the way that they've interacted with you and asked for your feedback? Do you feel that your questions have been answered?
So the first question was directed to me, was it?
First question to you, yes.
And that was about overnight and the wheelie bin and the
Yes.
commercial waste being kept
Yes.
on premises.
Yep.
The answer to that is, well, the question more specifically is, will we be happy with this being a condition?
Yeah.
It's a proposal. It's, again, we look to Alison for legal advice on this. However, the suggestion is this: if, for example, if we were to accept this as a condition and it was feasible, I would like this to be taken into account. Say the local authority changes its rules about collection times, or they arrange collection at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. in the morning. We will basically follow their recommendation because we obviously want there to be practicality for commercial waste collection. So with that in mind, I would exercise some caution for making this a condition. We will, however, as we stated, keep commercial waste inside the premises, so not overnight. So when, as Mr. Vukovic says in his objection, he walks on the pavement every morning and he sees commercial waste. I did highlight earlier that there have been problems with commercial waste collection. And it's for that reason we're going to keep commercial waste inside the premises until, say, for example, half an hour or 1 hour before the expected time for commercial collection to take place, where staff will bring them out. Now, if we were to try and word a condition, legally enforceable condition, I think we would struggle by putting it as a condition. So that's my answer. I mean, we are willing for this to be a condition, but I think it's an unenforceable.
And I think I would like to clarify, disposal of the commercial waste is a responsibility of every business to dispose of in a right manner, in a right way. So that is already, for any business, it is necessary that they dispose of their rubbish in a proper way. And they must have, and I'm sure they would have, you would have a commercial contract with the commercial waste company to collect the waste. But we can always discuss that with the legal advisor when we come to the decision.
I agree, Chair. I mean, this is the point that I was making. But it's a legal obligation, and we don't want there to be a conflicting condition that may contradict or conflict with another rule or regulation. So in that sense, I would suggest that on a practical level, the management are saying that they will keep commercial waste inside the premises to satisfy that there is no that there isn't the scene outside the premises as the objectors have highlighted.
Thank you. Any other question?
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Could I just ask the objectors whether they feel they've been answered, their concerns have been answered?
Yeah, I completely agree with the chair that we shouldn't really discuss and make it this as a condition. The commercial waste should be in the bins covered, and also I'm not sure two bins would be sufficient to take on all this waste, which I see every morning. And that's not early morning. That's early morning. Sometimes up to 7, 8, even 9 o'clock in the morning. It's simply unacceptable for this country, for 21st century as well.
Sure. Thank you. Maureen, you want to answer Councillor Gland's question?
Yes, certainly. No, I'm afraid the hours are really a sticking point for us, because at the centre of Acton has had lots of problems. That's why it's a special policy area. And I really feel that the council has paid a lot of attention to alcohol policy over the years. It has come up with suggested core hours, and that's what we've suggested the restaurant should be going to. I'm not sure really what sort of clientele it's really wanting by opening later. Mr. Gundas spoke to me yesterday, and he did say it was a family restaurant. Families want to eat at lunchtime. They want to eat in the early evening. They don't want to be eating at 1 o'clock in the morning. And so I'm afraid those extra hours are the sticking point for us.
Okay, thank you. Any other question from my colleagues? Councillor Driscoll, you have any question?
No, it was just to clarify with Alison from the legal advice about the role of waste and licensing, because normally the licensing is enforced by street services and action can be taken that separately to licensing. So just to clarify where that sits with licensing, I accept that there's an issue on Acton High Street, and where that's attributable to, that's something else, but I don't know if Alison can offer any guidance where this sits.
Yes, the general rule about licensing conditions is that where there is another regime that actually can deal with it a lot more effectively, that's what should take precedence. It might be possible to craft something that says, subject to the requirements of the waste contract, that waste will be kept in on the premises overnight. But I can say that could potentially be quite difficult to enforce. And given that there is actually a requirement to deal with commercial waste properly, and there are other methods of complaining against the premises should they not comply with that, for instance, to environmental health, the council street teams, that is probably a more effective way of handling those issues. Just on the point about smoking, whilst I'm here, I agree with Mr. Gundas. I don't think that again that's an enforceable condition. It's public highway.
It's a public highway, yes.
Yeah, and it'd be very difficult to say, no, you can't smoke there, when actually there isn't any restriction in general terms on people smoking on the highway.
And also the waste, there is a £400 fine for the fly tipping. So if there is any waste issue, that should be reported to the local authority, and they fully investigate. Okay. Okay. Yes, Councillor Gallant, you've got a question.
Just think that I think Anne wanted to respond to say whether she'd actually felt her concerns and the Residents' Association's concerns have been answered.
Yes, Anne.
Thank you. As Maureen has mentioned, there is still a concern with the hours particularly for Monday to Thursday. They're in excess of the core hours for the sale of alcohol on the premises, and also for the late night refreshment as well. They're one of the concerns, and just generally those hours, because they are outside of the core hours. It's in the special policy area. So whilst some conditions have been offered, they don't fully address our concerns. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Gunduz, my question before we move on to the next stage. The live music, obviously, at the moment, you are allowed to play recorded music until the time you have requested. Do you think live music will have more negative impact than the recorded one once if it was granted?
Councillor, the answer is no. It will not have a negative impact, and this issue, I think, I'm not sure if the application specifies, but it's responding to bookings and demands of the customers. As mentioned previously, the proprietor is experienced. He's not proposing to introduce the sort of examples of drum and bass, electric music, which really goes with different territories. So in that sense, the answer is no, it shouldn't cause any negative impact. And I would like to add also, or remind again, that 77 residents living in the upper parts were aware of this application, and this issue does not concern them. It's only because we believe that they know and they trust the management.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we move on to the next stage where I'm going to invite the objectors to present their objections. Obviously, you are three. So I suppose you won't be repeating so that we can move on in a timely manner, but over to you, Maureen.
Okay, thank you. Just to reiterate about the area, which is the centre of Acton. It's in the very centre. It's opposite a church. It's near a mosque, and there's an Islamic centre. There's a care home just around the corner, and there is a big residential development just above. Now, the fact that those people haven't objected, I think, is due to the fact that most people find the process of noticing licensing applications and applying to them very opaque. As a residents association, we're informed of new applications and we monitor that and take action. I don't think it's an indication that it won't cause problems. I have in the past, when Woody's Grill was in residence at this restaurant, sat in a meeting where there had been inconvenience in the flats above, and the managing agent and one of the residents turned up to the hearing. So what we're trying to do is a preventative thing here to prevent that sort of thing happening again, where people have to take action after the problem. We're trying to preempt that. And I think it's very important that the council, having consulted the public, they've taken a lot of care over their alcohol policy over the years. I've been involved with scrutiny and also commenting on the policy, that having core hours recommended in there for these special policy areas, that is taken account of. Now, for a restaurant, Acton has many successful restaurants, particularly in Churchfield Road rather than in the High Street. And we welcome a successful restaurant, one that caters to families, which is what I've been told this restaurant wants to do. But as I've said, families don't want to eat late at night. They would not be the clientele turning up then. There's a danger of people coming out of pubs, going into this restaurant and really treating it like a bar, even though it says a substantial meal. They'll just order a little bit of food and carry on drinking. I think it's really unreasonable when you've got a very big residential development right above this restaurant to expect people during the week to have people coming out of the restaurant creating noise, creating nuisance, which they will do because it's a very narrow pavement there, it's very busy during the week when people are trying to work. So I would suggest that the applicant hasn't paid nearly as much attention to the fact that in core hours, there is a differentiation between Monday to Thursday and the Friday, Saturday hours. And I would suggest that they could think about that. And that's why we recommended core hours for this premises.
Okay, thank you. Anne?
I agree with all those comments that Maureen's just made. Just looking at the signage for the premises, I know that Mr. Gunders has said that it's a family restaurant, it's not a bar. But the signage for the restaurant is actually, it says Mediterranean restaurant and cocktail bar. They have a bar area with seats up at the bar as well in the premises. What's critical for us is that the premises is managed well. Again, Mr. Gunders sort of relays that they want to manage and have been managing the premises well. But I'm concerned that premises are offering two conditions on their licenses, on their license for this variation, when they're already on their license, and there doesn't seem to be an awareness that you know, the table meal, the substantial table meal with any order of alcohol is actually already a condition. So for them to sort of say that they're doing it anyway because it'd be good practice, they have to do that. That's what they agreed. I agreed that with the applicant when they first applied for their license. The same goes again for the deliveries and the hours of the deliveries, and that includes recycling waste and any deliveries of goods to the premises. In terms of management of the premises, they've got scores on the doors. Their score was 3. They get 3 stars, which is quite an average score for a food premises, in my opinion. The issue of the noise and the hours, I think, because of the residential nature of the premises, people going out, leaving, slamming car doors, raised voices, mopeds coming to the premises for collections of food, for food deliveries, all of those things make a very that impacts on the quality of the life of people living in and around the premises. And those sort of issues like litter, like noise, various types of noise, are hugely underreported because people tend not to report it because they feel they're not going to get a resolution. And one way to address this, we feel, is to make sure that the hours are kept within the core hours as stated in the licensing policy. I think that covers.
Okay.
Without duplicating everything that Maureen has already said.
Thank you. Mr. Slobden, do you have any, do you want to make any presentation, or shall we move on?
No. Plenty more pictures to show.
Cannot hear you.
Oh. Can you hear me?
Speak and we'll see.
Hello?
Yeah? Yes, can you speak up, please?
Yes. Basically, my objection was based on the refuse. I've got plenty more pictures to show if anybody's interested to see. There is nothing really surprising. There's lots of rubbish scattered on the footway. Basically, I would like to know if there's any plan for refuse and refuse collection. Where would applicant leave the refuse, even if they comply with the providing with the wheeler bins? Where would they leave them? There needs to be a clear footway width provided in line with TfL guidance, which I believe is 2 meters away from town center. For town center is 3.5 meters. Everything needs to be conditional. And at this moment, I'm really surprised this hasn't been addressed initially. So we are talking about basic things at this stage. If you really wish to see more pictures, I can share my screen with you, but there's nothing practical to be seen, to be honest.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gunduz, do you have any question from the objectors?
Yes, only to Mrs. College.
Yes.
I believe Mrs. College mentioned that she has knowledge of the previous proprietors, previous management. Is it the Wood Grill or Woody Grill?
Woody Grill.
Woody Grill, yes. My only question is, you've mentioned that there were concerns regarding the management of that. Are you aware of any management complaints or reviews haven't taken place with regards Kayra Mediterranean restaurant?
My understanding is that this restaurant hasn't been operating that long. So no, I haven't any direct complaints, but I am rather concerned by the fact that they have only 3 out of 5 on the food inspection scores. That certainly wouldn't encourage me to go to them. And also that, as Anne raised the point, they didn't seem aware of licensing conditions and very concerned about the way that they allowed waste to build up on the pavement in plastic bags and to be ripped apart. And it took action by others to get this dealt with. So I do have some concerns about the management of it. It is a very large restaurant. It has potentially 150 seats. And that means it needs managing even more than a sort of little place, actually. And I think we have, concerns particularly because of the situation of where it is, right in the centre of Acton, where lots of problems have been in the past.
Ms. College, the question was you want to repeat your question, Mr. Gunduz?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Are you aware of any complaints or reviews regarding, I should have added, the licensable activities of Kayra restaurant?
Well, this is a licensing review, or it's a licensing hearing of it. But I mean, it's only been running since last year.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Any other question you have, Mr. Gunduz?
No, Chair, thank you.
Okay. Well, we have nearly come toward the end. Before I ask you to sum up the presentation, obviously, the condition that you spoke about, there, I believe already the alcohol with the main meal, also the delivery between 8 to 8 p.m. And smoking, obviously, you can't enforce. So there isn't any new condition that we have agreed. If there was a decision in your favor. So I'm going to ask the objectors to sum up, and then I will be asking the applicant to sum it up. So objectors, can I ask one of the objectors to sum up rather than everyone individually? Who would like to sum it up?
I'm quite happy if Anne wants to do it.
Is that okay, Anne?
Is that all right?
I would like to sum it up. I'm sorry. I'm Slobodan's wife, and I would like to sum. I've been listening to.
Sorry, who is that?
It's Slobodan's wife. My name is Milica. Yes, I'm Slobodan's wife.
Hang on one second. Hang on one second.
Yes.
Alison, we are not aware of this.
No, Chair, I think that I don't think we should be hearing from people that haven't actually made a representation. Obviously, she's got a connection to Mr. Slobodan, but I think any summing up should be restricted to the people that have already spoken. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Anne and Maureen, who would like to sum up?
I don't mind doing it, and it's not on to, but maybe I'll do it. Could I point out that if you were to go to core hours, actually for Friday and Saturday, the restaurant would get the hours that it wanted, whereas it would give the community and the residents round about the peace of mind that they'll be able to get a decent sleep on other days and not be disturbed.
So are you saying that, sorry, can you repeat what you said?
To core hours, can I point out that actually on alcohol, you would get what the restaurant is asking for on Fridays and Saturdays, so that what we're really trying to do is to preserve the peace and quiet and a possible sleep for residents on Monday to Thursday.
Okay.
Sorry, that's probably not a summing up, but it's pointing out that we're not being unreasonable, but we really do feel that the hours are a sticking point, actually, and we'll be very disappointed if we don't get some flexibility, because I think it changes the nature of the premises, and it does leave the possibility that this is becoming more like a bar, less like a family restaurant.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just add one thing to that?
And you can sum it up now.
Okay, just the point that Maureen made on the alcohol hours, changing the Monday to Thursday hours. That is purely for the alcohol hours, but with regard to the late night refreshment hours, those applied for are outside of the core hours, and we are very keen, just because of issues raised with noise, to see those reduced. Whilst we welcome some of the conditions, aside from the ones that are already on the licence, really we feel that the hours are the only way to ensure that the residents' quality of life aren't impacted. Another possible condition that would be useful, that we have seen added before, is a condition for a telephone number and contact to be made available to local residents should there be any issues in the future with noise or any other concerns that they may have, and that there's an open dialogue then between residents and the premises management.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Gunduz, you've got a few minutes to briefly sum it up now before we move on to the decision-making process.
Thank you, Chair. I believe all of the issues as raised by the objections have been discussed today, and we've established that commercial waste is a concern, but it's not within the remit of the Licensing Act because it's dealt with by alternative regulations. So I don't want to focus too much on commercial waste, other than to assure those concerned that we are taking active management to deal with those concerns. And part of that will be to keep chasing the local council to deal with, obviously, their obligations in collections. Because I think the problem is not necessarily the placement of the bins outside, but it's the lack of collection that has really caused the problem and concerns for the objections to come this far. And so therefore we will continue working with the local council regarding commercial waste. In terms of the opening hours, I will resubmit that it's a reasonable application with half an hour extension, and we did say previously that the residents upstairs, it's not just a few households. We're talking about 77 units, and they have raised no objections. And I will also remind that Churchfield or Mill Hill do not represent any of the residents living upstairs, and they tried to voice concerns that haven't been raised by the residents upstairs. and I will therefore invite the committee to disregard those concerns because those concerns do not exist for the immediate vicinity. We're talking about noise, and therefore, given that there is no concern, I will invite the committee to disregard the submissions by the objections with regards noise and disturbance. And I will remind that all of the relevant authorities have been notified of this application, and crime and disorder, public safety, these issues could, would have been objected to if there was a problem before the committee today for this application. They haven't come forward, which reinforces the reasonableness of this application. And given that the management have responded to the objections in a reasonable manner, I will invite the committee to approve the application. And I'd like to just flag one point to Anne of Mill Hill Residents Association. It's not the applicant's fault that I put the hours, the substantial meal point as a condition. That was a representation made by myself, and therefore I take responsibility for that. That doesn't mean that the management are not aware of what they're doing, and so therefore the management, I will repeat, are experienced. They know their obligations. They know who to work with within the council, and they can be trusted to run these premises, as opposed to the concerns raised by Mooring College earlier about wood grill in the past. They've had various complaints, and we're not wood grill. We shouldn't be punished for the past of past management's errors. It's a completely new premises, new business, new management, and we should be given the benefit of the doubt to continue working well, professionally and reasonably, without the concerns of the, historic concerns of the previous management. And on that note, I will submit that these are my submissions, and I'll be inviting the committee to approve the reasonable half-an-hour extension that we are seeking today.
Thank you. We have come to the end of the hearing. The committee will now retire to make the decision, and I would say 4 o'clock. We can, well, stay available 4 o'clock. We will try to come back 4 o'clock, but if we are going to take longer, we will let you know. But let's call it 4 o'clock. And if we obviously cannot reach the decision, then the decision will be sent within 5 working days. So we will be retiring now. You can leave and come back at 4 o'clock. And at 4 o'clock, if we are not ready, then we will let you know what time the decision will be announced. Thank you.